Hi, and welcome to this short presentation from my series on brain-driven weight loss. My name is Coach John McLernan, and I am the head coach here at Freedom Nutrition Coaching. Between myself and my clients, we've lost literally thousands of pounds, and I really want to help you become another success story, not just at losing weight, but actually being able to keep it off for life, because really that's the goal of the work that we're doing here, is not just losing weight, but keeping it off for life. And so in this video, I want to give you the short overview version of this topic, and then in the upcoming videos, I'm going to break it down in more detail if you want to understand at a greater depth how all of this works. So let's talk about why we struggle to create permanent change, why we can maybe see success for a few months at a time, and then we just kind of blow it all up and sabotage. So where this begins, it starts with the desire to create change. And that usually originates in reaction to some kind of pain, frustration, discomfort, maybe even desperation. So maybe you have a feeling like, I'm really frustrated. I don't like how I'm feeling. I don't like how my clothes fit. I don't like how my body feels in this. I just want to feel comfortable in the skin I'm in, something like that. And so prior to us having maybe a wave of motivation, we actually have a wave of pain or frustration that washes over us. And because the brain and body don't like pain, the response to that is to generate a surge in motivation for us to move out of that pain. So then our brain starts cycling through some of these ideas like, what can I do about this, if anything? Is there any hope for me? What do I need to do differently? Now, very often we end up taking a flawed approach. So we'll set some big goals that are powered by motivation. And it's natural to make this mistake in thinking that this motivation wave will be the one to carry us to the finish line of our goals. So what we feel in that moment, now it's natural to want that to continue. But in reality, a wave of motivation is exactly that. It's a wave. So it comes in, it peaks, it crests, and then it crashes back down to baseline. So if we're not prepared for that, we're going to end up caught in this yo-yo weight loss cycle. And the underlying problem here, at the heart of it, our goals are too far away from who we presently are. So let's say, just as an example here, if you had a goal to run a marathon this year, and you're someone who doesn't run at all right now, or maybe only walks a couple of miles, becoming the kind of person who has the ability to run a marathon, that happens not because of a surge in motivation, but a very deliberate development of habits, behaviors, mindset, psychology, we call this the internal work, so that you become the kind of person who has the ability to run a marathon. And so if we've set this goal that's too far away from who we are right now, it's too distinct from our current habits, mindset, identity, and behavior patterns. And so ultimately, at the core of this, we could say you can't become a new person by putting a Band-Aid on an old identity. So let me give you an example of what I mean by this. You may have heard the stat that about 70% of lottery winners have gone bankrupt within 3 years historically. And this happens because most people who buy lottery tickets are usually not wealthy to begin with. They're usually people struggling to make ends meet. And they're hoping that the lottery ticket will be the thing that fixes the problem. But the majority of people who buy lottery tickets, they often struggle with responsible money management and their spending habits as well. And extra money doesn't change who they are and how they behave with money, right? So now let's say your brain has an operating system. Let me give you a visual here that might help. So imagine you have the latest model of smartphone, powerful piece of hardware, all kinds of potential. But imagine it was programmed with an operating system from 20 years ago. There's no way it's going to perform at the level it's capable of. And so to carry this analogy over, your brain is basically the most powerful computer hardware that's ever existed, but it can only perform to the level of its operating system. Now, if your operating system has instructions like, as soon as this is done, we can go back to enjoying life, there's an underlying belief here, living healthy sucks, right? Or I always gain the weight back. The underlying belief being, I'm not good enough to do this. So speaking of beliefs, where do these beliefs come from? So a belief is an acceptance that a statement is true or something exists. So if we look at that, a belief is nothing more than our ability to accept something as true. And, as we all know from, childhood beliefs around Santa, the Tooth Fairy, the Easter Bunny, monsters in our closet, something doesn't have to be real for us to believe in it. So real or not, we have the ability to believe in anything we want. We just have to accept the idea as true. Now, we could say, in short, a belief comes from this formula. Message plus emotion plus repetition equals belief. So for example, every time you get mad at yourself and say, you suck, when you pair that, that feeling of being angry and frustrated with that repeated message of you suck every time you make a mistake, you then begin to form this belief that you suck. Now, when that happens, your brain will, once you accept that belief as true, your brain will then help you focus on and look for more evidence to reinforce that belief. It's how our brains work. So beliefs drive long-term behavior patterns. So the formation of our sense of identity, who we see ourselves to be, that actually happens largely without really our conscious awareness. It happens on a daily basis as we repeat behaviors, we receive messages that reinforce our underlying sense of identity. And so when we try to create change, we can really only fight against our beliefs and sense of identity for a short period of time before our brain will actually start steering us to sabotage and return to our old self, to be in congruence with or match up with our sense of identity. So if who you're trying to become or what you're trying to change doesn't line up with your current beliefs and identity, in other words, if you're trying to become a healthy person, but you believe that healthy living is hard and miserable, that will create discomfort. And discomfort equals danger to our most primal brain. Danger equals stay the same. Let's keep you safe. And so by keeping you stuck in a pattern of behavior, your brain's actually trying to keep you safe. So you might hear that and wonder, okay, well, how can we create change? Now, here's something interesting. We only access about 5% of our brain at any given time, meaning that 95% of our brain function is unconscious. Now, this is necessary. We wouldn't be able to function if we had to consciously focus on every piece of input, that our brain was receiving. So our brain uses habits and automation to maintain what's called a homeostasis, or keeping things the same. So the unconscious part of our brain is driving us to keep repeating the same behavior patterns, which match up with or come from our beliefs about ourselves and our sense of identity. So what's really interesting is who we are really becomes a compilation of our automatic thoughts and our behaviors on repeat. So let's look at it this way. When you say something like, I want to lose 40 pounds, what you're actually saying is, I want to become the person whose habits and behaviors get me to and keep me 40 pounds lighter than I currently am. So what we really need to do here is actually create new habits and new behaviors that stick. And that's where the core of this lies. And so we could ask the question, well, okay, how do habits form? In short, habits form in response to a good feeling or emotion. So, like if a behavior feels good, there's a strong likelihood that we're going to repeat it. And on the flip side, our brain also wants to avoid pain. So if a behavior takes away discomfort, there's a strong likelihood we'll repeat it. So if, for example, when you're upset, bored, lonely, etc., and you eat chocolate, and it takes away that discomfort as well as giving you some pleasure, it's a very strong likelihood that a habit can form from that where, I feel uncomfortable, I eat chocolate, I feel better. Now, on the other hand, if we try to force restriction, if we try to force ourselves to change with external rules and regulations and restrictions, we're actually fighting against who we are. And our brain's going to say, I don't like this, this is uncomfortable, and it will fight you to return to homeostasis. And so this is why restriction and deprivation always end in failure, because the brain will reject behaviors that feel bad. So how do we create lasting change? Well, maybe we could say, where you're at right now with regards to your health is a direct result of your belief system, your sense of identity, and the habits and behaviors that you developed or not developed. So we're the product of our repeated behaviors. Our health is largely the product of our repeated behaviors. Now, those habits or repeated behaviors, they come from who we believe ourselves to be. So what we really need is almost like a new blueprint to work from. So we could put it like this. We need to be clear on who we want to become. So in other words, it's not enough to say I want to lose 30 pounds. We need to know why that means something to you if that's your goal. And then what are the habits of the person that is, say, 30 pounds lighter? How do they think and feel and speak about themselves? So once you're clear on who you want to become, and you know kind of like what the habits are they'd have on a daily basis, then you can actually start to develop those habits. You kind of have a blueprint or a template for getting you there. And then because you know why it's meaningful for you to become that person, now these habits and repeated behaviors, they have a deeper meaning other than I just have to do this to lose weight, right? Because remember, for a habit to stick, it needs to be connected to a good emotion. So In a nutshell, what we're saying is this process is who, why, and how. So we get clear on who we want to become, why we want to become that person, why it's meaningful, and then we can plan out how we will become that person. So to create permanent change, really you have to become a transformed person. So really that's it in a nutshell. There's a lot of detail that I've skipped over kind of for the sake of keeping this short. So if you want to go deeper and learn more about this is exactly why I've created this series. So if you've enjoyed this, if you found this helpful, please leave a review. Please let me know what you like and what you'd like to learn more about. And I hope this inspires you to go deeper into my series on brain-driven weight loss. Take care. We'll chat soon.